Today we're going to talk about the second myth of America. So if you haven't seen my lecture 4.1 where I talk about the first myth of America, you might want to do that, or I'll give you a quick recap. But before we begin, let me make sure you understand that a myth is not something that is false. A myth, rather, is something that we are not going to worry too much about the scientific or philosophic truth or falseness of it. Let me give you an example. Love. And if you said, "Oh, Mr. Horn, true love is an evolutionary tool," I think I'm going to say, well, I don't really care about the scientific, the basis of love. It's a myth that I accept. So, let me go back and talk about the first myth. The first myth is the myth of individual rights. And we started with Thomas Jefferson. All men are created equal, and they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, property. And then we went back actually to the Mayflower Compact, where we decided to join together, remember? And we decided that we would make a civil body politic, making such just and equal laws from time to time as shall be thought most meet and convenient. And that's the beginning of democracy. And then Abraham Lincoln, in his Gettysburg Address, really does some myth making, because I'm not sure he's historically true, but again, it doesn't matter. He talks about how this nation was conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. And then Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in the shadows of Abraham Lincoln, in fact, with those words etched on the temple of Abraham Lincoln, talks about how wonderful the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution is, but it's a check, a promissory check, and when black people went to cash it, there said insufficient funds, and so it's time to redeem this. And so this idea of individual rights is a myth of America, but I want to talk about a different myth today. This is a myth, a little in tension with that myth. And we'll start reading Abraham Lincoln again. This time we're in his second inaugural address, so he's just about to end the Civil War, and he's just about to die. And he says this, so I'm going to read it to you. Hopefully you can read it also. If we shall suppose that American slavery is one of those offenses, and that he gives to both North and South this terrible war as the woe due to those by whom the offense came, so this is God, he has given the war to both the North and the South. Okay. Shall we discern therein any departure from those divine attributes which believers in a living God always ascribe to him? Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away, yet, if God wills, that it continues until all the wealth piled by the bondsman 250 years of unrequited toil. See, Abraham Lincoln is saying this war is not a war of the evil South and the slaveholders against the pure, good Northerners. He says this is a punishment by a just and righteous God. And this punishment is to both the North and the South. Why? Because there's 250 years of slavery. Every colony had slaves. Every colony was supported by slavery. And this is a sin of America. It's not a sin of the South. This is the sin of America. So he says, yet, if God wills that it continues until all the wealth piled by the bondsman 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword. As was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. Now, I draw it back to John Winthrop. So this is 10 years after the Mayflower Compact, and John Winthrop has just started the Massachusetts Bay Colony. He's on the boat, the Arabella, and he gives this sermon. And listen to this sermon. For this end, we must be knit together in this work as one man. We must entertain each other in brotherly affection. We must be willing to abridge ourselves of superfluities for the supplies of others' necessities. We must uphold familiar commerce together in all meekness and gentleness and patience and liberality. We must delight in each other, making each other's conditions our own, rejoice together, mourn together, labor and suffer together, always having before our eyes our commission and community in the work as members of the same body. So shall we keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. This idea that we are a community, that we mourn together, we labor and suffer together, that we are members of the same body. Now, jump forward to that same I Have a Dream speech that MLK said in 1963. Listen to this part and read with me. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And then there's the free, I have a dream, right? And then the end of this is, and when this happens, and when we all allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we'll be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics. By the way, I hope you remember that Protestants and Catholics hate each other in the most of the 20th century until the 70s and 80s. Protestants and Catholics are very unhappy together. And let's throw in Muslims and atheists. We'll be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we're free at last. Now the problem we have, I think, is if we are community, what is it that binds us together? The Puritans were bound together by something that they got from the king, a charter. But quickly they voted and they created their own government. And Abraham Lincoln and MLK both believe in this Constitution, this Declaration of Independence, that somehow brings us together, the bonds of affection, right? The bonds, the cords will bind us with cords, says Abraham Lincoln in another place, when the better angels of our nature. So the question, though, is what is it that binds us together, that makes us into this community, this American, this myth? I think we need more than just the myth of rights, that we all have individual rights, but there's also a responsibility to each other as a community. And it's not a responsibility to all mankind. See, the Russian Revolution, the Soviet Revolution, the French Revolution was about the brotherhood of mankind as a whole, but the American Revolution wasn't. It was about particular folk on a particular place. And that's who we are. We are American citizens. We're not Nigerians and French and English. We've come to America, and we have maybe we have ancestors in other places, but we are now Americans, and there's something about Americans that we have to combine together. We have to join together. Now, how do we do it without God? I hope you notice that all three of those myths, all three of those scriptures placed God at the center. That's a great question. Maybe we'll look